Roll call, please.
William Clevenger,
Here.
Bill Githens,
Here.
Bill Ham,
Here.
Sally Ricciardi.
Here.
Rich West.
All stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let everyone know that this meeting is being recorded, and by you agreeing to speak, you agree to that recording, and it will be later show up on the town's YouTube channel. First on the agenda is approval of the September 27, 2022 minutes.
Yeah.
Have a motion?
Can I,
Sure.
just to make a quick explanation on the minutes that I was not here at the last meeting. Had I been, I would have caught this as the motion was being made, but when I put the wrong year on the ordinance for the park fees.
Oh.
I went back in time to 2020, unfortunately, instead of staying in date to 2022. So when the motion was made to suspend the rules and pass the ordinance on second and third reading, the motion was to pass ordinance 2020-006 and not 2022, which is what it should have been. And that's what was listed on the agenda. So I made the amendment in the minutes. So it shows, knowing that that was the intent of the motion. And I know Rich made a comment that the number was wrong. I heard that in the minutes as well. So the initial motion was fine. It was the suspend the rules and pass on second and third that were incorrect, or that's in 2020. So I fixed that in the minutes, and that's how it's reflected, that it's 2022-006. So I just want to let you all know that and to have it so that it's in the minutes that way too. So when people go back and say, well,
It'll be
the
in
motion was,
It'll be in the motion that way too, after.
well, whatever motion you decide to come up with, hopefully you'll make it short and sweet to the point. So
Do you need us to do that or just by passing the minutes? Correct.
with the amendment, I would say the motion with the amendment as the minutes as amended is sufficient.
The date of that meeting. was
September 27th,
27th. Okay. I'd make a motion.
2022.
I'd make a motion that we approve the revised or amended minutes for the September 27th, 2022 council meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I abstain since I wasn't here at the meeting. Next thing on the agenda is public hearing for ordinance 2022-007, 2023 annual budget. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll move that we open public hearing. The 2023 annual budget. 22-07.
Is there a second? Motion been made and seconded to open the public meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Comments from the public?
Yeah, I got a copy and made them available at the. Copy the budget. Okay. Here's
It's
grabbing.
on the table in the hallway.
Here's grabbing you one.
We gonna be able to pay our bills?
Yes.
That's all we need to know.
Is there a motion to close the public meeting? No, anyone else? No, anyone online? Have any questions on 2023 budget? Hearing none, is there a motion to close the public meeting?
So moved.
Motion made by Bill Ham, seconded by Sally to close the public meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Next is first reading on the ordinance for the 2022-007 and 2023 annual budget. Do I have a motion to approve it on first reading?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Bill Ham, seconded by Rich to approve ordinance 2022-007 from the 2023 budget, annual budget on the first reading. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Do you wanna, we're gonna wait and do second and third next time? That's what I thought.
Very good.
No rushing ahead.
I'm not. Next thing on the agenda is the opening of the snow removal bids.
Yes, so we put an RFP out about a month ago, and we received only one bid, and I'd really like to just take it under advisement and make sure it matches with the RFP, apples to apples, and then take your vote at the next meeting. The bid that came in was for seller services. At a glance, it does look like he included the quote as we requested it by the amount of snow. So I think it's going to be okay, but I just want to have Bob review it before we approve it.
You want a motion to that effect?
Sure.
I move that. Proposal, possible request for services for snow plowing, the utilities and street superintendent.
A second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to delay the approval of the snow removal bids till superintendent has a chance to review it. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Town managers report.
Great. Okay, if you pass the unsafe building update material, I want to go to utility street department updates. Just an FYI that we've received a handful of applications for the open positions in Bob's department. Once we finish the advertising phase, we will start some interviews for that. The SURF contract, rather than have you approve this, Jim and I have been back and forth on the phone and email on the contract. We're basically incorporating parts of the RFP into the contract, and then we're also attaching that RFP as an appendix, which I had written it that way to begin with. But there are a few key highlights that Jim would like from that RFP incorporated into the contract itself. And we're also going to include SURF's investment in addition to our own, so that it's a known investment on their side of it as well. Because the redevelopment commission is funding our side of the investment, we also want to have both boards approve it. So what we're going to do is I've included Jim's modifications and a couple that Bob and I tweaked. We will present that to CRC, and then we'll come back to council's next meeting and present it here. And then I'll submit it to SURF. In the meantime, I've been talking with SURF. They've assigned a project manager to the project, and we're going to have a meeting with them to talk about schedule. When Bob and I met with Plymouth and Bourbon to talk about the permitting and how to go about the installation phase of this project, one of the big heads ups that came up in that discussion was the fact that when you're boring underneath earth that we will be doing for this project, sometimes you hit utility lines, sometimes you hit something else. And even though they're going to be working on a right of way for the most part, one of the issues that came up in Plymouth is when you do hit one of those lines, sometimes it's the homeowners who discover that because they get a backed up toilet or a backed up sewage line or water leak of some sort, which threw up a big red flag for Bob and me because this time of year, a lot of our homeowners are not home. And I discussed it with Gene Cruz, the CEO of Surf Broadband Solutions, to say, hey, would we be better off doing this in spring, summer season? Or are we going to have homeowners also come back to properties with floods and that sort of thing happening? Knowing our situation is a little different than some of the other communities they've worked in, he agreed that we would probably be best off to do this when most of our residents are actually here. And I realized that would delay us, but it would also perhaps prevent a lot of problems from happening for some of our homeowners who are most certainly interested in connecting to fiber. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about from a schedule standpoint. Both of our schools want to get connected sooner versus later. SURF has a separate contract with Culver Academies because they're not within the corporate limits, but also Culver Community School wants to get connected. So there are things that SURF could do to get that work started, knowing that each part of the community they're in. So we're going to discuss how they might be able to get some things going ahead of time, where once we're running, then when most residents are here, it goes a little quicker. So things like locates and what could be done is starting at the school and get them connected earlier than, say, other areas of town. So I just wanted to give you that heads up because I know a lot of people in the public are itching to get their fiber connected sooner versus later. But just from everything we've learned about how this works, our concern is having people in their houses when this gets done. So.
Can you refresh my memory on how much SURF is putting into this?
It's about 796,000, just shy of 800,000. We're at about 531,000.
Okay. And do they have specific things those are addressing? And do we have specific things? That
Yeah,
they're
the
addressing?
RFP will not only outline what type of network and some of the technical specs we're requiring of them, but it'll also, they have responded what the end user agreements would be. So that's one of the things that Jim wanted to highlight. One of the upsides of working with SURF is they lock in whatever package you would pick as an end user. And we want to reiterate that in our contract as well, that they stick with that.
As well as the amounts, depending on the speed. and things like
Yeah,
that.
like they have a chart, whatever you
Mhm.
pick, and it goes from, low end is $27 to the high end.
Yeah.
And they also, you can get someone who might not be able to afford the low end package. There are ways to get grant dollars for that, where they have like a program you can sign up for, and that's like through state funding though. But yeah.
Is this going to impact on the cost by delaying?
No,
It's going to lock in the cost by the contract.
yeah, I mean, he's not pushed back on that at all. Because we have an investment in it, we would get a scheduling priority if we wanted it. But knowing that we're going into installing over fall and winter, and you can do some installation over winter because the depth you bore is not the same depth you would for, say, a utility line. You're literally trying to stay above that utility line. But we're close enough to those lines that you're likely to have more than, one occasion when you're going to hit one of those. So Plymouth had some of that, even beyond their SURF. I mean, they've had other providers come in. So we don't want people showing up in their house flooded or sewage backed up for miles because they weren't here for a month.
Subscriber information would include things like ability to cancel penalties.
Yeah, and those contracts are worked out between the end user and SURF, but the packages they offered are part of the RFP.
So that'll be on
Yeah,
this. Okay.
we're using the RFP as an exhibit in the contract that they have to fulfill the RFP requirements, but Jim wanted to kind of pull out some key highlights to emphasize those in the contract, like
Right,
we're monitoring that.
not trivial.
That, and then we used a lot of the, there's an agreement in there too, in terms of, a replacement for like a permit. Culver doesn't have a specific permit for fiber installation.
Mhm.
So we've taken Plymouth's and modified it for our own purposes. Like Bob and I have met with Plymouth and Bourbon on their permitting. And theirs is done through a board of works, and they have an engineer that works for the city of Plymouth. So it's a very well thought out process, and we're pretty much going with that similar process. It's all part of right of way work, how they, there's these things called pots that get placed about every 2 or 3 houses, and where you place them is all specified in that too. So that's part of the contract agreement, is that they'll follow what we've outlined
You know,
there.
like relay stations or something.
Yeah, and there's things in there like, if you do a road cut or a pothole or those sorts of things, you have to repair it and leave it in at least the condition it started or better. So there are things that protect the town that are part of that agreement as well.
Okay,
Jenny, are we realistically, understand what you said, but realistically, we're probably looking at summer.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think many people are gonna be coming to Culver in the spring.
yeah, I think like May timeframe would be ideal. It's not ideal from a traffic standpoint, but in general, they're in the right of way and in the alleys. So traffic control, from what we learned from Plymouth and Bourbon, is not such an issue unless you have a particularly tight right of way, and then you may have traffic control on a segment at a time. But yeah, I mean, they can do locates and stuff like that ahead of then. They could get started on that in, say, March.
Is it possible for them to start in the business communities? Those are occupied, and those would be the ones that would be most disruptive. During the business season.
Yeah, that's kind of where
Main and Lecture Road.
we're discussing that with them, is, you know, the fact that we have this tourism element and these part-time resident element, it gets tricky for us because summer is obviously the downtown areas and business areas. So yeah, that's probably possible. It just depends. We're going to sit with their project manager and their design person and take a look at it and try to figure out how to best go about it. I don't want them, we literally could get this contract signed and they could get going right away. But if we don't sit down with their design plan and figure it out, I don't think that would be wise for us. And I know, like with the city of Plymouth, it took a good 8 months before they got started after they signed on, because it goes through their engineer. They look at all of the plans. Those plans get designed usually by a fiber company. This Surf is really going to do the install side of it. So there's subcontractors that'll be involved. We're going to want to look at their as-builts and all of their documentation before we actually get going. And that'll be part of it, is figuring out where they start and how we go about it.
Any other questions?
Jim had a question.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, yes, we'll go on to the rest of the
Continue.
work, sorry. Lake Max Phase 3 and the Slate Jefferson Trail, there's environmental agency responses coming back, so that's still moving. The water project proposal from Midwestern, you guys approved that contract at the last meeting. So Bob's having conversations with Mark about that. Peerless proposal for the new well. I think I've explained to you guys that item requested that we add language to the easement. Burke Richardson, who represents CMD, and Wade McGee on this project development, have met with item to go over that agreement. It's been rewritten again. But Bob and I now have tweaks to it, so we'll put it in front of you at the next meeting. And then but in the meantime, we've asked for an extension with item on that project because we've been trying to get this done for months. And so far we've had good response from item. Skipping over the digester blower, because that's I'm gonna leave that on the report till we figure that purchasing of some of the utility projects. But the next one is Paul De Benedictis and Boo Marshall. They have a project they would like to do next spring, and the reason they wanted to get this worked out now with us is because the project is in our right of way. They have a property on Lakeshore Drive and Bradley Court there in the corner, right across from the root beer stand. That house, if you've noticed, it has a wall down below and a sidewalk along Lakeshore Drive. That wall and the sidewalk are in our right of way. And Boo and Paul would like to change that wall so that instead of sort of that brick sort of military look, I don't know what to call it. Yeah, that they'd like to do stone and replace that entire wall. Right now, that wall has an opening with stairs going up the hill. They want to close that off. And then they also want to redo the sidewalk and make it ADA compliant so that the sidewalk goes from where it is now against the wall all the way to the curb. Right now, there's a bit of a green strip along that sidewalk between the curb and the sidewalk. So they also want to extend that sidewalk a bit around the corner onto Bradley Court, because between the root beer stand, there's the alley, and then there's this sort of mucked up area that over the years with snow plowing and activity along that alley, it covers up everything that's there. So they had like buried steps there. And once they cleaned it all up and found steps and everything else, they want to protect that area a little bit by bringing the sidewalk from Lakeshore around the corner up until a point where they have a set of stairs on the Bradley Court side of that wall. That wall would also be stone along Bradley Court. There's one other piece to that project. There's a NIPSCO, an old NIPSCO pole in the middle of the sidewalk that's on our right of way, but also they're part of the property. And they'd like to have that NIPSCO pole removed. Bob and I have looked at that, and we agree that removing it would not be a bad thing. And actually moving that NIPSCO pole connects to a pole in the corner where the root beer stand is. We'd like that light to actually be put on the root beer stand light and take out the old light when they do the sidewalk project. That pole just gets in the way of the sidewalk. It's the only old one left along that whole stretch. So they would like to take that out. That's a matter of us, the town, telling NIPSCO it's okay to remove that pole. NIPSCO's okay with removing that pole and okay with moving that light to the corner instead of on that pole. I'd say that pole's about midway between the corner and their sidewalk stretch there. But for them to do this project, they need us to allow them to work in the right of way. I think it's a good project. It's going to improve the sidewalk safety and also, frankly, improve the look of that sort of entrance into town. So my recommendation and Bob's is to approve the project. They will still have to get a permit for this when they're ready to go do the project. But one of the things that the county plan director will look for is that we've given them the permission to work in the right of way.
One question about the closing off those stairs for access from Lakeshore Drive, from the emergency services department perspective, police department, fire department, EMS. I mean, that is going, will that encumber access to the front of that building if they have to respond?
No.
Because that wall is about 5 foot high.
Yeah, no, they're actually going to access that property from the back on the alley. behind the property is where you access it. You can't really access it from the front from a road perspective. On the Bradley Court side, there is a set of stairs if they needed to, for some reason, access from that route, they could still go up that set of stairs, and it's a less steep hill on that side. So I couldn't perceive that being an issue. And I think Terry has looked at this property as well, because they were considering changing the address of the property from Lakeshore Drive to Bradley Court, because you do enter the property from either Bradley Court or from the alley on the other side, which would be the west side of the property in the back. But there's no need really to change the address because the fire department knows how to get access to it. If that makes sense.
Do we need to see any kind of plans before we approve this?
No, they will submit a plan with their permit
Okay.
application. And it'll basically outline that they want to do a sidewalk and a stone wall, and they'll have to meet permit requirements
Okay.
for that.
And we'll do an easement of some type or an easement agreement on that. If they're gonna allow them to put it in the right of way.
I don't think we need an easement, but Karen and I have talked about this because we've had other people do stuff in the right of way. And we may want to create our own permit, or, you know, where you have to apply to work in right of way. If it's I don't know, it's something we should look at doing for the long term. You know, so people aren't doing things in the right of way that we come along and tear out because we decide to put a trail or something in. Yeah.
How much of an easement is there right then?
A right of way, it goes well into the hill.
10 feet or 12 feet?
I believe it's even more than that, Terry.
Most of them are or something, that's where the line usually is. If it's 10 or 12. Just wondering.
No,
if that's
12
something
may
they
be
consider
correct,
for-
because I know when they talked with Chuck, he basically said to the middle of that hill. I mean, they are kind of lowering that hill, and they're taking out, there's a walnut tree there that's lifting that hill and going into that wall that the guy doing the project for him has said would need to come out because it's hindering that hill and it's making it less safe. So they want to lower that just from a safety standpoint too. But,
Okay.
you know, for them to go apply for a permit at this stage, they want to know it's okay to do the project, and they're hiring someone and making an investment in it. So they don't want to just start doing it without us saying it's okay to do it.
Does the River Stand have any say so, or do they, because of what's gonna happen, shut off or anything? I just want to make sure that,
Yeah, there's not going to be a variance on it
Okay.
or rezoning of it. It's just a sidewalk wall project.
okay, that's where I'm coming from. Just want to make sure all parties understand what's gonna happen, so that we don't come up in the middle of this.
Basically, wall, they're building, being the same locations.
Yes,
Right.
Just for you to sign.
yes.
It'll be moved back.
Does that sidewalk, the width of that sidewalk meet the standards of?
It'll become ADA with their plan.
I know it's all chewed up, but in terms of the width of it, that strikes me as a narrower sidewalk than the 5 foot.
No, if they take it all the way to the curb, it'll be ADA compliant. The thing is, as you get past their property to the next neighbor, that one will still have a green strip unless we decide to do a sidewalk project there. So one thing that Bob and I have asked is to get a quote to continue it down. Eventually, so that sidewalk goes like this. Here's their property of sidewalk, here's the next neighbor, and then it curves around like this to the gas station intersection there. So up to the point of that curve, it would be nice to keep the curbs going along. They're putting in new curbing for this project. Be nice to keep that curb all the way through the neighbor's property and go the sidewalk all the way to the curb as well. So it's ADA the whole stretch. But because the neighbors aren't asking to do a project there, Bob and I would like to get a quote to extend that sidewalk at the neighboring property. And we're looking into getting a quote for that.
It's a neighboring property, the shorter wall.
Yes, yeah, they're, Cleveland Falls is the longer stretch by
I
quite a
mean,
bit.
in height.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it will enhance the visually that area. Like this. Easement issue with the ADA compliance and the width of the sidewalk. And
Well, their neighbors have limestone. Not block.
Yeah, and the neighbors aren't redoing the wall at this point in time.
Jenny,
Right.
that, the neighbors right next door, that's a concrete block wall with a 2-inch culture stone on it. The next one down to the corner is a complete stone wall. So there are 2 houses there
Oh, yeah, I see that.
that are in this project.
Fieldstone.
Asking for a motion to approve, move forward on the project.
Yeah, I'm asking you to authorize them to work in the right of way, basically, on this project. They will not likely get their permit till spring.
Right.
But they want to know that they can do it before they do all that.
Motion. Little
I'll make a motion to
bit. Right away.
the Benedictus and Boone Marshall project in the right of way.
There a second?
I'm second.
Been made and seconded to approve Paul Benedictus and Blue Marshall right away. Lake Shore property. Further discussion?
I would like the comments that have been discussed here to be forwarded to whoever is doing the permitting process, so that business owners can do the best as they can. Help us out.
I can do that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Community crossings grant application that we put in, we've not received your word for that one yet. And we'll let you know when we do. The Stellar project, as you guys can see, that has gotten underway. They've removed the old playground equipment and some other stuff. And Mike Reese from Troyer Group had a meeting with the construction crew yesterday to go over some of the issues that have popped up on site as they get going on that project. So it will stay under construction for a bit. Comprehensive plan, just an FYI, MACOG has been coming to our Crossroad Culver meetings for working on this plan, as several of you know, because you've been at some of those meetings. On October 27th would be our next scheduled Crossroads meeting. But that particular day, the Marshall County Crossroads team is having an offsite all-day workshop that I'll be attending, and even MACOG will be attending that. So we're going to reschedule that, and I'll let you know what that date is when MACOG gets back to me. Very likely to fall on a Thursday again, like our normal Crossroads Steering Committee meeting. So I will put word out to the Crossroads Culver team that we're going to change that date. The community crossings grant that we had been working on for paving is completed. You probably saw the striping on Jefferson Street with parking, etc. That was really the last step of that. So we'll close that one out. There are no special event permits. The Marshall County Crossroads Ready Grant that we did for the housing project, South Bend Elkhart region is rolling out how they will disseminate that. And there's a training session that will be required to attend. This Thursday is the first of those meetings. I'm supposed to be traveling to Michigan, but I will be attending that via Zoom. I will be here Thursday morning, probably through 11 o'clock, working half day because we also have a TRC meeting that day. But I'll keep you apprised as what the process is for that. And of course, we'll keep CMD in the loop on that because they will be required to do some stuff as well. Nothing new on Blue Zones, the annexation of Tamarack Road. Just so you know, I've asked Jim Clevenger to handle the petition for that annexation. I'll be doing the emergency services plan and some of the documents that are required for that. But Jim is going to handle sort of the legal side of it. In addition, the Plan Commission had approved combining 2 lots here in town. One of the lots was in the township and one is in the town of Culver. And one of the requirements for them to get approval for creating that was that the lot being combined with the town lot get annexed in. So I've let Jim know about that as well, so he can handle, it's 2 different types of annexation, but definitely not in my legal forte. So I've kind of handed that off to our illustrious attorney. If he says no, Jim can get him on board. So far, he's a yes. And that's all I have.
Department head report.
Jeff won't be here tonight. And I don't see Bob online yet, but I covered Bob's stuff.
Yeah, about the used ambulance.
It sounds to me like he was asking for you to approve him doing it as a trade-in. Because we didn't get bids for it, so I would prefer you to.
Doesn't hurt to do that.
I have a question. And I saw his, what he put out today, his report. But it seems to me, going back and listening to his presentation as far as the ambulance, that there's a significant difference between being able to sell the ambulance and trading it in.
Mhm.
And if we have a problem with a radiator, wouldn't it be more prudent to fix the radiator? That's what's holding up the sale. Wouldn't it be better to fix the radiator and try and get a third party to buy the ambulance rather than take what the guy, and I'm just going back to a recollection, there was quite a difference between, I think, what he said that they might
Yeah,
be
and
able to
I'm
get.
trying to think, was it like 5,000 on the trade-in and you were trying to get 30 for it? Am I in the
Yeah,
ballpark?
somewhere in there.
Am I in the
Bill, I
ballpark?
think, yeah. I mean, I can't
Do you remember?
believe that a radiator is gonna be a $30,000 job.
But is the radiator the only stumbling block would be my question.
Well,
Is
that
there more
seems to
to
be that seems to be what people balked at, it was the radiator.
It sounds like it from his communication, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's something we could look into, get an estimate for repairs in general, or, you know, we don't have to make a decision tonight.
Right.
We can just make a recommendation that you go get
I agree with you,
estimates
Bill.
for getting the.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we just get an estimate for some of these key repairs that would prevent a sale.
He just said it was a big number, but I don't know what that means.
Well, that's what I say, but
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody buy it for 10,000, that's more than what the dealer is gonna give
Exactly.
us at 5.
Exactly.
Assuming that's what the thing was, I think.
Yeah, but we don't want to spend 15,000 just to get 10.
No,
But, I mean, I'm all for looking at, seeing what it would cost to get it saleable.
Okay.
And we go from there.
Okay.
Is that
I'll let him
everybody's
know.
wishes? Okay, let's do
Yes.
that with it.
The other point that we made was the agreement with the last guy,
Yep.
Mhm.
the financial impact of that.
Yeah, we were, he was trying to get them to cover the costs of us servicing that area. And that was a significant number compared to what they were used to paying for a little over $6,000. So I think they're choosing to go with Fulton County and do something different.
It sounds, his memo was a little confusing, but sounds though, well, will not realize the revenue from that agreement. Our cost should be decreased because the cost, it was a loss cost to begin with. It was costing us more to service the account than it was we were getting in.
Yeah, and I think he had 2 points there. The volume of calls have gone up to that area. And then also the end users insurance and what we get out of that is low. That's what it,
We're gonna need to study this further.
Yeah,
Points well taken. Let's move on. Fire?
Yeah, I got a few things to bring out for kind of you guys some. We have one of our members that's passed the fire 102 class, 8 months, graduated today. Great thing for us. With that, we are getting ready to put 3 more into the class in November, which was supposed to be a 6-month class. Without the class, we can't do it according to the scope. And also on personnel, we had a 35-year member retire last night. Kind of a problem. And the same evening, we had someone come in and fill out an application. So that's a lot of personnel things for us. And we've kind of been doing our bylaws, and kind of redoing things, and kind of shook up a little bit.
Who retired? Who retired?
Denny Morrison.
And was Jake Rogers your one that passed? You know, I just think it would help the council and the town as a whole to know who, you know, names of some of these folks at times.
I think, I mean, I would make a motion that we, some special recognition of the years and this practice. 34 years, is that 35?
Got a motion?
Yes, it wasn't very eloquent, but it was.
There's motion made by Rich and seconded by Bill Ham to acknowledge Denny Morrison's 35 years as a firefighter.
Thank you for this.
And thank you for his service. Bill did. Bill did. So motion been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Next on the agenda, we decided that we're going to have an appreciation dinner for all the firemen that on the Colorado Fire Department that are still with us. November 12th at 5 p.m. at the Cove, we're gonna have a dinner. So some of those people we may have a little trouble getting a hold of due to not Facebook, older people that don't do Facebook. We're gonna ask the radio maybe to put something out. The newspaper can put something out to help know that those people were a member of our fire department. They should come to this appreciation.
That's November the 12th at 5
Yes, sir.
at the Cove.
Yes.
Okay. Else?
And last but not least, is National Fire Prevention Week. Your smoke detectors, emergency route. We'll be going to the schools. I don't know if we're gonna make it this week. They got a full agenda. There's some air conditioning work, so the kids can't be in the school. So we are gonna be at all the schools. That's all I got.
Thank you, Terry. Wayne?
Well, that wasn't top rate. Written. Bill tested. We went through that school together with quite a dozen departments. Law enforcement. And they threw that high school stuff, do they did. Right. Grades. Good job.
Good. Bart?
As Jenny mentioned, we had our first field report done on the regional stellar playground and social gathering space project. Mike sent back a really good report, did a pretty thorough inspection, so we're gonna touch up some items based on that report. Fall Fest went pretty well. The park department did our last outdoor movie of the season. Had a pretty good turnout for that. Our 2023 peer lease agreements will be going out October 21st. And then other than that, we're gearing up for turkey trot. Wayne, do you want us submitting because the park department's gonna do everything associated with the turkey trot. Do you want us to submit like a special event permit for that? Because people will be, I'll go over the route with you, but do you want me to do a special event permit for it? No, it's a 5K, so it will require. There's usually not a ton of, it's not like to the degree of, like.
The triathlon.
Not run like Max or like the triathlon or anything like that. It's nothing that, I mean, there's no registration or anything. It's pretty. Okay, so I should do a special event permit for it, which I'm fine doing. It's not, okay, yeah. And then the turkey trot,
When's that?
that's the Thanksgiving Day.
Thanksgiving
So
Day,
we'll be
okay.
doing a turkey trot and a yoga session. Turkey trot at 9, and then a yoga class for everything free, open to the public, then yoga class at 10.
That's it?
Yes.
Thank you. Clerk's report.
I just have a couple of claims over $2,500 that need your approval. The first one is our quarterly payment to Program Lake Kentucky Visitor Center for $5,000. The second is Wyland County Flood Insurance receipt of $740. Legal fees. E&B paving, $259,794 for paving. And part of that, 75% of that is reimbursed from the CCMG grant. Then Hooters Tree Service, $6,100. That's for tree removal and stump grinding. And finally, Burt's Body Shop, $3,432.64. That's for car repair. And part of that is paid by the insurance.
Is there a motion to approve claims over 2,500?
So moved.
Motion made by Bill Clevenger, seconded by Bill Ham. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Attorney's report.
Well, the only thing that I have that Jim Clevenger left me to advise you on is arguments were heard on 415 Lakeshore Drive, and the judge said from the bench that he would issue a ruling on the arguments heard within 30 days. So that's all we know.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the room or online for utility shut off or an ordinance violation? Anyone online? Hearing none, moving on. Citizen input? Hey,
Betty Stallings, 506 East Lakeshore Drive. Just had two short things. One thing is, I know that you asked Terry to look into getting some quotes on blocking up the 7 windows on the fire department. building. And I don't know if that's progressed at all. And the other thing is, you know, I've heard you talk for a couple of years. I know Jenny had talked about it. I think it's a good idea. And I know financially it's hard for the council to do, but maybe we can figure out another way to perhaps at Christmas time, hold a thank you to all the people on your boards and your commissions. Just to get them together with you is a goodwill gesture of thank you. And I was thinking we have such a nice place to have it at the park. And I'd be happy to serve on a committee if, you know, to raise funds or what is needed to go ahead and do something like this.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Anyone online for citizen input? Move on, council issues? Rich?
Nothing,
William?
Nothing.
Sally?
it's sound like a broken record.
William?
I have no issues.
And I have none.
Oh, really?
Did you want to discuss?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the close.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.